Ramadan is a month of fasting and prayer. It brings us closer to Allah and each other. It brings us closer to Allah and each other.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidil Anbiya'i wal Mursaleen. Amma ba'd, fa'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. As-salatu wa salamu alayka ya Rasulallah wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Habiballah. As-salatu wa salamu alayka ya Nabi Allah wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Nur Allah. The Prophet of mankind, the peace of our heart and mind, the most generous and kind, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, has stated, whoever recited salat upon me 10 times during the day and 10 times during the night, who attain my intercession on the day of judgment. Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillah, in the last episode we discussed about the rulings of fasting. Inshallah, I shall discuss to you about the rulings of fasting in this episode as well. The rulings of fasting are very important. But dear viewers, let's look at 14 points regarding acts that invalidate the fast. Number 1. Eating, drinking, or having intercourse will result in the invalidation of the fast, provided one was aware that he was fasting. Number 2, smoking a hookah, cigar, cigarette, or cheroot, etc. will also invalidate the fast, even if one assumes that the smoke has not reached the throat. Number 3, chewing pan, betel, or tobacco will also invalidate the fast, even if one spits constantly, because its tiny particles will definitely reach the throat. Number 4, if a fasting person puts something soluble like sugar, etc. in his mouth and then swallows his saliva, his fast will become invalid. Number 5, if something equal to the size of a chickpea or larger was stuck between the teeth of a fasting person and he swallowed it, or if it was smaller than a chickpea but he took it out from the mouth and then put it back in and swallowed it, his fast will become invalid in both the cases. Number 6, if gums bleed and blood goes down the throat and its taste is also felt, regardless of whether or not the amount of blood is equal to, more than, or less than the saliva, the fast will become invalid in this case. But if the amount of blood is less than the saliva and the taste of blood is not felt either, the fast will not become invalid. Number 7, despite being aware that he was fasting, if a fasting person inserts a laxative, a medicine, into the anal orifice or inhales medicine through the nostrils, his fast will become invalid. Number 8, if water went down the throat unintentionally whilst rinsing the mouth, or if one sniffed water through the nose and it reached the brain, then the fast will become invalid. However, if it happens in forgetfulness, when one was unaware that he was fasting, fast will not be invalid even if he does it deliberately. Likewise, if someone throws something towards the fasting person and it goes down the throat, his fast will become invalid. Number 9, drinking or eating something whilst asleep will result in the invalidation of the fast. Similarly, if the mouth of a fasting person was open and a drop of water or a flake of snow goes down his throat, his fast will become invalid. Number 10, swallowing another person's saliva or putting one's own saliva onto one's palm and then swallowing it will invalidate the fast. Number 11, swallowing the saliva or phlegm that is already in the mouth does not invalidate the fast. Spitting the saliva every now and then is not necessary. Number 12, if one put a colored string into his mouth, which changes the color of the saliva, and then he swallowed that colored saliva, his fast would become invalid. Number 13, swallowing 1 or 2 drops of tear will not invalidate the fast, but swallowing many drops whose saltiness is felt in the whole mouth will result in the invalidation of the fast. The same ruling applies to sweat. Number 14. During defecation, in other words, relieving oneself, if the anal orifice appears out, one must dry it properly with a piece of cloth, etc., before standing up so that there remains no wetness. If he stands up with drops of water on the anus, causing the water to be absorbed into the body, the fast will become invalid. This is the reason why the respected Islamic jurists, rahimahumullah ta'ala, have advised the fasting persons to avoid breathing whilst washing the anus after defecation. Some people become worried in case of vomiting in the state of fast. Some are under the impression that vomiting, even involuntarily, also breaks the fast. This isn't correct. Sayyidina Abu Huraira radiyallahu ta'ala an has narrated that the noble Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wasallam has said, the fast of a person who vomits involuntarily in Ramadan will not break, but if a person vomits deliberately, it will break. He sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wasallam has also said, the one who vomits involuntarily does not have to do qada for his fast, but the one who vomits deliberately must do qada. My dear viewers, let's look at 7 rulings regarding vomiting. Number 1. In the state of fast, vomiting involuntarily will not invalidate the fast, no matter how much it is, even if a whole bucket fills with vomit. Number 2. Deliberate mouthful vomiting will invalidate the fast, provided one was aware that he was fasting. Number 3. Even deliberate mouthful vomiting will invalidate the fast only when the vomit contains food or water or bile or blood. Number 4. Vomiting only phlegm will not invalidate the fast. Number 5. Vomiting only a bit, not a mouthful, deliberately will not invalidate the fast. Number 6. In case of vomiting less than a mouthful and then swallowing it, whilst it is still in the mouth, regardless of whether it is swallowed deliberately or unintentionally, the fast will not become invalid. Number 7. Though involuntary mouthful vomiting will not invalidate the fast, if one swallows even a chickpea amount of it, the fast will become invalid. However, if the swallowed amount is less than the size of a chickpea, the fast will not become invalid. Let's look at the definition of what mouthful vomit is. The vomit that cannot be prevented without bother is mouthful vomit. Let's look at 5 rulings regarding vomiting in the state of wudu. Mouthful vomit, excluding phlegm, is impure. Ensure that not even a single drop of it stains your clothes or body. Today, people are not aware of it and do not care about the drops of vomit staining their clothes. They even wipe the impure vomit from their mouths, etc., with their own clothes. Sayyidina Abu Huraira radiyallahu ta'ala an has narrated that the Prophet of mankind, the peace of our heart and mind, the most generous and kind, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, has stated, the fasting person who eats or drinks forgetfully has to complete his fast because Allah Azza wa Jal has fed him. My dear viewers, now let's look at 21 points about acts that do not invalidate the fast. Number 1. Eating, drinking or having intercourse forgetfully will not invalidate the fast, whether it is a fard fast or a nafil one. Number 2. If someone sees a fasting person do any of such acts, it is wajib for him to remind the fasting person of his fast. If he did not remind, he will be sinner. However, if the person is too weak and is unlikely to complete his fast properly in case of not eating the food because of being reminded, and on the other hand, if he eats food, he will not only be able to complete his fast properly, but also carry out other worship. And as he is eating forgetfully, his fast will be valid. Then it is better not to remind him. Some respected scholars, rahimahumullah ta'ala, have said, if the fasting person is young one, should remind him, but if he is old, then there is no harm in not reminding him. But this rule is based on the fact that the young are generally strong and healthy, and the old are generally weak. In fact, this ruling has nothing to do with old age and young age. Instead, it applies on the basis of strength and weakness. In other words, if a young man is too weak to complete his fast, it is better not to remind him. And if an old man is strong enough to complete his fast properly, it is wajib to remind him. Number 3, if a fly or dust or smoke goes down the throat, the fast will not become invalid even if one was aware that he was fasting. Whether it is the flour blowing up whilst being grinded in the grindstone or sieved, or it is the dust of grain or dust that is blown by the wind or the hoofs of animals. The fast will not become invalid if the dust goes down the throat in the aforementioned cases. Number 4, similarly, if the car or bus smoke or the blowing dust reaches the throat, it will not invalidate the fast even if one was aware that he was fasting. Number 5, if the smoke of a burning incense stick enters the nose, fast will not be invalid. However, if one takes his nose closer to a burning incense or frankincense and deliberately inhales the smoke, despite being aware that he was fasting, his fast will become invalid. Number 6, treating the heat of the body by placing a pierced horn over the area of pain, massaging oil or applying kohol into the eyes will not invalidate the fast, even if one feels the taste of oil or kohol in throat, or even if the color of the kohol appears in saliva. Number 7, fast will not be invalid in case of feeling the coolness of the water inside the body after taking bath. Number 8, if one rinses the mouth with water and spits the water out completely, just a little wetness has remained inside the mouth, swallowing this wetness with saliva will not invalidate the fast. Number 9, the fast will not be invalid even if the taste of the medicine being crushed is felt in the throat. Number 10, the fast will not be invalid if water enters the ear or even if one pours it deliberately. Number 11, inserting a splinter into the ear to itch it does not invalidate the fast. Even if the splinter comes into contact with ear dirt and this act is repeatedly done, the fast will not become invalid. Number 12, if a tiny particle was in the mouth or was stuck between the teeth and it goes down the throat with saliva, the fast will not become invalid. Number 13, if the gums bleed and the blood reaches the throat but does not go down the throat, fast will not be invalid in this case. Number 14, swallowing a fly unintentionally will not invalidate the fast, but swallowing it deliberately will invalidate the fast. Number 15, if somebody eats food or drinks water forgetfully, but he spits out the food or water from the mouth as soon as he recalls the fast, then his fast will not become invalid. But if he swallows the morsel of food or water that was in his mouth, despite recalling the fast will become invalid. Number 16, if a person who was eating before dawn spits out everything in his mouth as soon as the time for sahari ends, his fast will not be invalid. But if he swallows the food, etc., that was in his mouth, his fast will be invalid. Number 17, backbiting does not invalidate the fast. However, backbiting is a major sin. The Holy Quran refers to backbiting as eating one's dead brother's flesh, and a hadith states that backbiting is worse than even fornication. Backbiting removes the blessings of the fast. Number 18, being in the state of major impurity when taking ritual bath is obligatory, or even spending the whole day in this impure state will not invalidate the fast. However, remaining in this state deliberately and missing salah is a sin and haram. A hadith states that the angels of mercy do not enter the house in which there is a junub, the one who is in the state of major impurity. Number 19, if one chews a sesame seed or a tiny particle equal to a sesame seed in size, which then goes down the throat with saliva, his fast will not be invalid. However, the fast will be invalid if its taste is felt in the throat. Number 20. Swallowing saliva or phlegm of the mouth will not invalidate the fast. Number 21. Swallowing the dried mucus of the nose by inhaling will not invalidate the fast. It is a humble request to my dear viewers that in order to learn more rulings of fasting, it's a humble request to the viewers to attend the weekly ijtimas of Dawat Islami, to travel in the Sunnah inspiring Madani Qafilas of Dawat Islami as well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the ability that we're able to acquire knowledge in regards to the rulings of fast and be able to complete them properly. Ameen bijahi nabil ameen sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Sallu ala al-habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam.
Ramadan is a month of fasting and prayer. It brings us closer to Allah and each other. It brings us closer to Allah and each other.